Hey, welcome to the Bring Your Worst Show. My name is Damon Brown. Let me go and connect with y'all on Amazon as well. So hold on tight for a second. All right. It's always a little bit of multitasking when it comes to connecting with all y'all. Again, welcome to the Bring Your Worst Show. My name is Damon Brown, coming to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. It has been a long time. I shouldn't have left you. But it's been a busy spring and summer here in America. I came out with my new book, Career Remix, and did the audiobook of that. I did some speaking engagements, which I'll throw up to a link in a second. Spent some family time. It was my 8th book in like 6 years. I'm not exaggerating. And so I needed to take a little bit of a break. So I've still been doing the YouTube show, and I appreciate all y'all that are coming through. Again, it's Bring Your Worst Show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. Appreciate the support. I think we're up to about approaching 250 episodes. I think it's about 230, 235 now. And it's been great being able to connect with y'all. Again, I'm a business coach. I am an author. I am a speaker. Obviously, I talk about keynotes. And I'm here to help you as a side hustler, a solopreneur, or otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. I fall into all those categories. Had 2 startups. The second one, called Cuddler, was pretty popular. In fact, it was the #1 app twice back in 2014, and did all that while I was a primary caregiver of my wife and I's first son. So it's quite a journey. I understand your journey if you're trying to do things differently, trying to balance your life, and trying to figure things out while still having a life. Since the pandemic began, which we're approaching the 3rd year of that, right? Which is crazy. The work that I've been doing and the discussions that I've been having with folks has gotten a lot deeper, because now having side hustles, having multiple sources of income, creating passive income, which if you're into the show or have worked with me, or have read any of my books, you know I'm really into passive income. That's become way more important. There's a way that you can become center of your own strength and of your own income, your own future. And you might not be able to do that 100%, depending on what you have going on in your life, where you're at, your skill set at the moment, what have you. But I like to kind of help elevate you and get you to an even better place than where you are now. And you know, what's better than that? So it's every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time, here in Las Vegas. You can subscribe for free right down there. And it's been a great ride. My new book, Career Remix, just came out in January. Oh my God, I can't believe it's August already. Came out in January. It's Career Remix. Get the gig you want based on the skills you've got. If you're watching on Amazon, you can see the little link on the side. If you're watching it through YouTube, then you see a link to the trailer, which should be the same one right below there. And there's a link to the book that's available in all the major outlets. It's through Union Square and Company. I talk about that unique partnership because I've had my own independent label, for lack of a better term, my own publishing company for several years. Had some bestsellers under that, and I decided to partner with this one. Partnerships are important. If you've been catching the show lately, you know I've been talking about that a lot. So you can watch the trailer to Career Remix on there. It's also available as audiobook, which was the last major thing I did as far as publishing. And that came out, I want to say mid-March, but it's available on all the platforms. Thanks for all the good feedback and enjoyment. I know some of you are just getting to it, and I appreciate all the good insights. Y'all are starting to quote it too, which is awesome. Shout out to my people over at Hippo Camp too. I'm actually drinking my smoothie from my Hippo Camp mug. I spoke at a Hippo Camp last year. And Hippo Camp is based over in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So it's right outside of Harrisburg. I think that's pretty accurate. But it's probably about an hour and a half from Philly. I'm originally from South Jersey, so I was a little bit familiar with the neighborhood and the area. And their main thing is creative nonfiction. I have 2 degrees in journalism, master's in magazine published from Northwestern. Shout out to y'all. And so this is right up my alley. So I had the honor of being able to speak with them last year. They just had their thing this past weekend, but I had a lot of stuff going on. And like I said, a lot of traveling, so I was not able to come through. But shout out to y'all that are there. I miss y'all. If you want to go and listen to my talk from last year, which was fairly well received, you can check it out right there. It's about using journalism skills My background is journalism. To master your manuscript, the manuscript could be public speaking. The manuscript could be obviously like a book. It could be you doing a memoir, and you want to interview your family, which a lot of folks that I work with, I do a lot of coaching, as I mentioned. A lot of folks that I work with are working on like memoirs or building things up based on their family history. Even if they're doing a startup or doing a certain type of business, a lot of it has to do with our history. And I get into that quite a bit in Career Remix, as well as the previous book, Build From Now, which came out the year before last. All right. So one other thing I want to share with y'all before we dive into today's topic. I just got off the road a couple months ago. It was wonderful to connect with y'all in person. Like, I just did a newsletter about it earlier today. So y'all that get the newsletter, you already know what I'm feeling about this. My Bring Your Worth keynote, my platform keynote, the name of my publishing company, the name of the show, the eponymous one, I think is the term that they use. I actually took it on the road and did the keynote over at the Mendel Center over at Lake Michigan University, or Lake Michigan College. And working with the Mendel Center was fantastic. So I spoke with them in late April, I believe. And that was my last major business trip. First time being on the road, being able to do a speaking engagement since fall of late summer, early fall of 2019, when I was the entrepreneur in residence over at the Toledo Library. Shout out to Jason and the other leaders over there. But ended up being fantastic being on the road again, being able to do the safety measures, connect with people. The turnout was awesome. It was great connecting with y'all in person. So much love over to Benton Harbor, Michigan, which is where I came through. The whole keynote is on here, so check it out. You'll be able to get the energy of the audience and all that stuff. So I highly recommend it. All right. So what we're going to talk about today are books from TED speakers that are my favorite. I've been a TED speaker 4 times over. Once at the second stage of the main conference. So we hear about the TED conference. I was on the second stage of that many moons ago. You can check that out again at youtube.com/BrownDamon. All my TED Talks are on there. And I did 3 TEDx talks, including 2 at TEDx Toledo. Again, shout out to my people over there. And so it's great to go to the TED conference regularly and be able to see it from 2 viewpoints. Not only to, have the privilege to see the people in person speak, but also to, right after the talk, to go to the bookstore. Usually have indie bookstores there. So shout out to them in Vancouver. Grab the book and be able to talk with them. Some of the people that I'm suggesting, I'm actually very cool with, but that happened after their talk, and being able to see that connection. The nice thing about TED Talks is that people are able to put their life's work, at least the good ones, they're able to put their life's work into 3 to 18 minutes. My first TED Talk was 3.5 minutes, and it totally changed the course of my career, even as far as how I served folks like yourself. It changed. It was a game changer. It was only 3.5 minutes. The TED speakers that I'm going to suggest here and their books, some of their books are long for sure, right? And they're all nonfiction books because that's my leaning. But their TED Talks, again, I think the longest one is like 20 minutes. And that was before they started getting it short to 18 minutes. So there's a lot of power there. I'm going to give the recommended book from the TED speaker. I'm going to give you a link to the TED Talk itself so you can watch it at your leisure, as I say. And then I'm actually going to give you a link to one of the 230 or so Bring Your Worth episodes that actually goes deeper into the topic that you're talking about. All right, so let's go ahead and hop on in. Thank you for allowing me to have the preamble too. It's so nice to be live with y'all again. I don't think we've had a live show. Oh my gosh. The last live show was around the time that the audiobook came out. So a good March, April. All right, so let's go ahead and hop into the suggestions. The first suggestion is Think Again by Adam Grant. Adam's awesome. I've got a chance to connect with him in person a few times. He walks the walk, so I appreciate the talk that he's talking, right? Think Again is his latest book. I'm recommending it not because it's his latest book, but because it's my favorite of his. It's a really simple idea. When we say, yeah, I just know this is true. Like, I know that's a fact. I know this is true. His thing is saying, well, our what we consider intuition or our gut or experience, he's like, well, maybe you're not right. And maybe that framework, not that it's incorrect, but that it's biased. And so maybe you should think again about what you're believing. The timing of this book could be better, of course, because I can't speak for the rest of the world. I have not left the country in a while. I used to travel a lot, but I have not left the country in a while. So I can't speak for the rest of the world. Here in America, as they say, it's very polarized. And polarization comes from you believing that you're the only person that holds the truth. And if you're the only person that holds the truth, then that means you have to be right. And because it's a black and white situation, then that means other people have to be wrong. And so there might be a shade of gray. There might be nuances or details. There might be something in the other person's story that makes their story true to them, and it doesn't make it true to you. My experiences as a middle-aged African-American entrepreneur with two little boys who's originally from South Jersey and now based in Las Vegas, I mean, there's all kinds of bias in there, not in a bad way. I mean that from a journalism standpoint, there's bias in there. He talks about that. He breaks it down. I thought it was fantastic. I can't remember which link I gave y'all, but I listened to the audiobook of it, which is why I don't physically have it. I really enjoyed the audiobook. Again, it's narrated by Adam. I know Adam, so it was good to hear his voice on that one. There's a TED Talk that he did that talks about the concept, or one of the major concepts in Think Again. And if you know psychology at all, or sociology, more sociology, then you know the frogs and hot water analogy, where a frog, if you turn up the water, if you put it in regular water and you turn up the heat really quickly, say on a stove, it's going to jump out. But if you turn up the heat slowly, then it might not jump out as quickly. He has a new twist on this, which is really, really interesting. So be sure and check it out. And TED Talk's like 15 minutes. I saw it like a while ago because it was when the book came out. And the book came out probably about, his book actually came out when my book Built From Now came out. So his book came out early last year. So I want to say January. We're kind of book twins in that sense. And then I have a recent Bring Your Worst Show episode. Again, it's a regular recorded, edited episodes, one of those that you're going to see Monday or Friday. And it's about Adam Grant and how to give without losing yourself. This one actually leans a little bit more towards his first major book, which was called Give and Take. Excuse me. I think that was his first major book, Give and Take. And I think later on it was Originals, which I have right above my shoulder over there, if you see it above my shoulder. Also an excellent book. But it pertains to things now because we're juggling so many things, because we have so many challenges. Up until a handful of months ago, I was homeschooling my kids because, we were sheltering in place right here in Nevada. We're doing this hybrid work situation. Y'all know I've been hanging out here in this office well before the pandemic. I'm used to working in this environment, but it's a different type of pressure and challenge, and figuring out what those boundaries are when it comes to the workplace. It's complicated now. It's not as simple as saying, I'm not going to take that work home. It's like, your work's literally on your computer. Your work's on your phone. Your work is everywhere. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's happening, right? So again, Adam Grant, the book I recommend is Think Again. His whole catalog is great. So shout out to Adam. All right. So this is my favorite book on the list. In fact, this is one that actually inspired me to even get live today, because I had to talk about this book. The Disordered Cosmos by Chanda Prescod-Weinstein. Shout out to Chanda. I got a chance to meet her after her TED Talk. I was just at TED early April. They actually had the in-person again, which was fantastic. So, much love to all of y'all. It was a lot of reunions because we hadn't seen each other in person in like 3-4 years for some of us. Some folks even longer. A lot of socially distant hugs. I'll leave it at that. But this was a highlight of the TED Talks that I saw. I've been familiar with her work for a little while. She's a scientist. Obviously, you can tell she's understands the cosmos, and I think the correct word is astrophysicist. So you can correct me in the comments if I didn't get that right. The astrophysicist. Fascinating stuff. but she's also African American. She's also part of the queer community, and she's also Jewish. And so there's so many intersectional things that she talks about in this book. And I've been really like combing through it and just going through it. And this has been my summer book. I got it back in April. I've been reading it like all summer. So I'm actually not in a rush to finish it. It's just taking my time and enjoying all the good literature in there. And as she told me when I got it signed after her TED Talk, and it was good to again meet her in person because I've been following her work for a few years, particularly online. She's really active on Twitter if you want to follow her over there. If you look at the subtitle, A Journey into Dark Matter, Space-Time, and Dreams Deferred. Now, if you look at the people behind me in the corner, we have St. John Coltrane, right? But of course, you have James Baldwin over here. And one of the contemporaries of James Baldwin would be Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes talked about a dream deferred and what happens to a dream deferred. Does it shrivel up like a raisin in the sun? If you caught my third TED Talk about why you should strive for good enough, my opening was that poem. It's a poem called Harlem, again by Langston Hughes. And so when I went to get the book signed, and she had mentioned this because she knew I was into literature, and she mentioned this, and I was like, oh wow. And my TED Talk like a few years ago, 2019, 2018, I mentioned that was an opener with the poem Harlem. So we bonded over that. But that gives you an idea as far as the depth in the discussions. Because we can talk about the world, we can talk about science, but science, aside from the cliche of African Americans not surviving very long in sci-fi movies, aside from that cliche, we don't really talk about culture and race and fitting in and where we belong when it comes to space. There's some strong analogies that have been used. Shout out to the original Star Trek, of course, with like the people that were half black, half white, etc. But to be able to talk about it directly, Chanda does an excellent job of that. And again, I'm loving the book. I usually spend like a week or two reading a book. I've literally been reading it all summer. Like it's been my summer read. If you get my newsletter at joindamon.me, it's free. It comes every Wednesday at 5:55 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You'll see at the bottom what I'm reading. If you look at the past 5 months, it's been the same book. So just get this book. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. And then you can go ahead and catch her TED Talk, How We Could Solve the Dark Matter Mystery. It has all the charm and energy that she has as a person. And, again, getting a chance to connect with her. And it has the charm and the energy that you're going to feel in the book. So if you're not sure about the book, if you're not sure if science writing's for you, check out the TED Talk. It might be right up your alley. And speaking of that, and I know she's addressed this, and she even talks about this a little bit in the book. I have a recent Bring Your Worth episode that talks about what to do when you aren't taken seriously. I give the whole background or some of the background in the video. I can relate to creating things, and then people are like, what the hell is this? What are you doing? Like, is this necessary? Like, you're contributing to the world. But those very things ended up becoming the bestsellers, becoming the #1 app in the world, twice over with Cuddler. But you have to be able to get through that friction. And in the Bring Your Worth episode, I don't know what that means, episode, I break down how you can kind of navigate those things. And again, some of the stuff that Chanda talks about, where her being Black and Jewish, and in her words, queer, and being an astrophysicist, it's just like, wow, it's already an area as far as with the front line of science, as far as people are getting notoriety, it's already pretty homogenous. No disrespect to scientists, it's just, it tends to be old white males. She was obviously none of that, right? And so being able to navigate those worlds, hopefully this will be a nice follow-up to watching her TED Talk and reading the book, is to figure out how you can make an impact, even if, and particularly if you are different than the people that are establishing the current status quo. I'll get off my soapbox on that. I can do a whole episode on that. Let me relax. Just grab Chanda's book. All right. The next book is Quiet by Susan Cain. As much as I'm babbling up here, I'm actually an introvert. I could shut down this computer, not do keynote for a little while, and just sit here by myself. I'd be doing great. As my kids would say, oh, it seems like daddy needs some alone time. I love being alone. Quiet is revolutionary, or was revolutionary, because it was the first book dedicated to us, people who weren't necessarily on the front line of being super social, the people who would go to a networking event or a happy hour and would be happy enjoying a drink or eating a meal by themselves, or, which is more my style, connecting with a couple people and having an extremely deep conversation, which isn't quite the extrovert style. That's more of an introvert style, because I'm more focused as far as where I put my social attention. I can't spread it out. I don't have that kind of stamina. She talks about that. I believe the subtitle is The Power of Introverts. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. This book was a bestseller. If you're an introvert, you probably heard about it. If you have not, you're welcome. Please read the book, and there's so much and a lot of stuff that she talked about, which I think the book came out almost exactly 10 years ago. The stuff she talked about actually has been integrated, because she's a consultant too, and a former lawyer, which I didn't learn about until we got a chance to connect a few years after that. A lot of stuff she talks about is now being integrated into the workplace. Now, this was before, obviously, the pandemic and the hybrid workplace. And so certain dynamics, like when I was in Silicon Valley, oh my gosh, almost 15 years ago now, because I left in 2011, so a decade plus ago, that's when we started to shift to open offices and the open space plan. I think that was the term, open office plan. See, it's so much a relic, I forgot what it's called. And when you get into oh, sorry, Amazon. Okay, the Quiet book is displaying for you now. See, I'm so busy babbling, I'm not even updating the app. So hopefully the book is displayed for you now. And the open office space would be basically old school cubicles. Shout out to Office Space, the movie, one of the best movies about office culture ever. But just cubicles. And it's like, this will allow people to collaborate more, and I'll let things to flow. I like working by myself. And I mean, obviously I'm talking to a computer in the middle of a silent room. And after I hang up the computer, I'm going to work here silently until it's time to pick up my kids a little bit later on today. So obviously it works for me. But there's so many of us who are creatives who get our inspiration, not necessarily from silence, but from being able to collect our thoughts. Some people, like my wife's actually an extrovert. And so she gets her energy, which is the definition of it. She gets her energy from talking to other people. So if she's trying to work something out, and people like her trying to work something out, they go and they're like, hey, Damon, I was trying to figure this out. And then they'll talk about it. They'll be like, I got it. And then they'll go ahead and do it. I'm the very opposite, where I'd be like, I need to think about this. And then I go for a walk, or I go meditate. My meditation corner is right over here. I'll just take a minute. And then I'll be like, I got it. This is what we can do. And then that's how I think. That's how I process things. She gets into that. And she ended up being a really good part of staving that not so great revolution of assuming that everyone was extrovert. But if we go way back to my mother's era, back in the 70s and 60s, to my grandmother's era, back in the 40s, that was always the energy. The go-getter was that guy, usually a guy, let's keep it real, that guy that could go into a room and command the conversation. I'm not that dude, as is, I forget the stats. Susan has them in there, but probably half the population, and here in America, are introverts. So it's like, we're not going to come in like that. But, as I say, I've done some really good damage with my career, so I'm doing something right. So us as introverts are just approaching it differently, even though we're impacting the world. She gives a blueprint for that. If you do not have it on your shelf, just buy it. Just buy it. Especially, even if you're an extrovert, you have introvert kids. for us, one of our kids is an extrovert, one of our kids is an introvert. From literally when they came out the womb, you could tell. It's like, oh, wow, okay. We have two very different personalities. So if you're raising kids that are introverts, if your partner's introvert, you don't know what the hell's going on with them. Again, sympathies to you, et cetera, et cetera. If you have introverts in your life, you need to cop it anyway. Her famous TED Talk, one of the most popular TED Talks out there, The Power of Introverts. Just watch it. I was in the audience, so I don't know if they showed me on the video or not, because sometimes they pan to the audience, but you'll see me really hyped up in the audience if they happen to clip over to me. That was actually at my first TED conference in 2000, I want to say 2012 or 2011. Yeah, fascinating time, but I was happy to be in the audience. Now, if you want to something that's a good companion to that, Bring Your Worth episode about how to slow down without losing your business. It actually features the next speaker I'm going to talk about, but it's an examination of how I was able to slow down the amount of work that I was doing, still stay connected to y'all, still make a living, and still serve. I know what serve means. Serve at a high level over the past, I'd say, 4 months. It's a total breakdown of that. I think the video is about 20 minutes, but that also ties into me being exhausted, frankly, as an introvert, because I was super social. I was doing back to back books. If you do creative projects, or if you're an industry where you launch products and you're doing or creating things back to back, and you're launching them, it requires so much energy. And so this actually ties into the introvert part. So it might be good if you're looking to take some type of break or reprieve from the work that you're doing, particularly if you run your own business like I do, so you have a little bit more options. And or if you're an introvert and you're feeling that you're kind of burnt out on the social thing, this might be a good video to kind of do the connective tissue to Susan's excellent book and her legendary TED Talk. Excuse me. And as I hinted at, Brene Brown, my favorite TED speaker, also spoke at that first TED that I went to. So it was like that lineup was different. Imagine going to your first TED and it's like Susan Cain and then followed by Brene Brown. It's like, woo. Brene Brown is really into emotional intelligence, particularly in regards to how we feel about shame, how we feel about guilt, how we feel to a lesser extent about regret, and how those play into how we interact with each other on a personal level and also on, as I found, on a career level. And it's so important to understand the blueprint and the details. Again, I'm a business coach. I help entrepreneurs and creators like yourself, including side hustlers and solopreneurs. And her work helped me elevate my game, because if you're having issue being productive, if you have a book that you're working on, but you don't feel like you can finish it, if there's a higher level of your career that you're trying to get to, and for some reason you're not getting there, it often has to do with deeper feelings that are beyond just, I can't concentrate right now, or I'm not sure if the boss is going to give me a promotion. It usually has to do with things related to self-worth, related to your history, psychological things and emotional things. This is where the emotional intelligence comes into play. And so just reading her work and interacting with her a little bit too online has just been wonderful as far as stepping that up. Of her immaculate catalog, Rising Strong is the one for me. And briefly, it talks about when people fail, to use a harsh word. I don't use the word fail, but I want to be extreme with this one. When people fail, or more importantly, when people feel like that they fail, then what gives them the energy, the presence of mind, where they get the strength to rise strong and fight again. I've had 3 bestsellers, and I've had probably just as many books not do that well at all, like single double-digit sales, which is really bad when it comes to a book, particularly when you're funding the book yourself, as I do, with my independent publishing company. What gives the energy to try it again? Shout out to Aaliyah, right? Dust yourself off and try again. Where does that energy come from? She talks about that, but it has to be an emotional journey as much as a journey of, shout out to Angela Duckworth, as much of a journey of grit. You can have all the grit that you want, but if emotionally you're sick, if emotionally you're not dealing with shit, pardon my French, you're not going to make it. You're not going to be able to really 100% get that strength to get to the next level. She's got some killer TED Talks. This is not the one that I saw in person. This is actually the one that put her on the map 3 or 4 years before this. It's called The Power of Vulnerability. It is excellent. I think it might be the 5th most popular TED Talk of all time. Always doing numbers. So shout out to Brene Brown. I have not read Atlas of the Heart yet. It is on my short list. Probably after I finish Chanda's book. Sorry, Brene. This is number 1 for me right now. But after I finish her book, then I'll read Atlas of the Heart. I think it came out probably about 9 months ago. But she's doing about a book every other year. So it's probably about 5-6 books. I've read most of them, like I said, and fantastic stuff. She's also doing Netflix specials. I have not seen any of the Netflix specials. Again, I got 2 little kids. I'm not watching a lot of TV, but shout out to her and much love as she was actually taking a sabbatical, which I referenced here in How to Slow Down Without Losing Your Business. So she's actually on sabbatical right now until next month, which I believe is September, right? Until September. Well, I know next month is September, but I believe that's when she comes back. And yeah, she's proof of concept, as I've been saying today. And how can I accept people for who they are? This is a breakdown of something that Brene Brown says in Rising Strong. It is, by coincidence, but not really if you think about it, by far my most popular episode of the Bring Your Worst show of the 235 or so episodes that I've done. And it's one of my favorite episodes too. If you haven't checked it out, be sure and check it out. Very brief. I think it's like 8 minutes. Forgive the lighting, because one of my first episodes. So it looks like I'm in like a dark room compared to now, because I literally was in a dark room as well, literally dark room as well as a dark room they do photography in. But I'm so proud of that work, and I was proud to get attention to one of my favorite quotes from Brene Brown, which really has helped me on my journey, not only as a business coach and helping folks like y'all, but also as a as a partner, as a father, as a family member, as a friend, and learning to judge people less. But particularly nowadays, we can all use some of that, right? So that's our lineup. So I'll go from the top. We have Think Again. And throw the link up here for you. Think Again by Adam Grant. Fantastic book. The Disordered Cosmos by Chanda, Prescod-Weinstein. Glad I got a chance to connect with you a few months ago. I'm loving your book. I think you'll love it too, because it's bringing science, but down to actual humanity, as opposed to being an abstract idea. It's Quiet by Susan Cain. It's a classic. I don't need to say any more. And finally, Rising Strong, my favorite book from definitely my favorite emotional intelligence leader right now. Shout out to Brene. I hope you're enjoying your rest, and I hope, I look forward to being able to recommend wonderful books in the future from Brene Brown. I'm sure she's going to be cooking up something marvelous in the next couple of years. Anyway, so Bring Your Worst show. I'm here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. You can always subscribe for free at youtube.com/BrownDamon. And my new book is Career Remix. Get the gig you want based on the skills you've got. It's available everywhere books are sold, as well as everywhere that you want your ears to be. Bring Your Worst show. We're 230 episodes in. I love to have you join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Until next time, remember that you can always bring your worth and that you can always build from now. Take care.